Cynthia Cindy Anderson was last seen on the morning of August 4th, 1981. 4 decades later, she is now the longest active missing persons case in Ohio.
Despite the case still being active, police are no closer to figuring out what happened to Cynthia, and the circumstances surrounding her disappearance are suspicious enough to give us pause. I'm John.
And I'm Brienne.
We are the host of What Happened To, a show where we discuss missing persons cases and the theories surrounding them that hold hidden secrets.
In today's episode, we're going to explore Cynthia's head-scratching disappearance and the reasons that this case remains open to this day.
At the time of her disappearance, Cynthia Anderson was 20 years old, and she was about to make a big change. She was preparing to hand in her resignation at the Rabbit and Feldstein law firm.
It was noon when Cynthia's bosses, James Rabbit and Jay Feldstein, made their way into the office. Immediately, they knew that something was wrong. While Cynthia's car was out in the lot occupying its usual spot, Cindy was not in the office.
Rabbit and Feldstein noticed almost immediately that something strange was going on. The front door was locked, the radio and the air conditioner were on, and the phone was ringing off the hook. It seemed like Cindy was there, but they looked, and she was nowhere to be found. Cindy was not the kind of employee to leave the office unattended, and her bosses were adamant that she would never leave the office without placing the telephone on hold.
But she did. No incoming calls were answered before 10 a.m., which told police that she must have already been gone. However, a former suspect, a maintenance man at the office, claimed to have seen Cindy at 9:45 a.m.
This worker told police that nothing seemed wrong with Cindy that day, but there was something even more strange. The office that Cindy worked in was in a cheap strip mall. It wasn't the nicest place, and it sure wasn't in the nicest neighborhood. So, Cindy's bosses had installed a panic button for her a few weeks before she went missing. One push of this button, and all of the neighboring businesses would know immediately that she was in trouble.
If Cindy had this button available, it makes her disappearance that much more strange. Where did she go within such a short time frame? Was she abducted? Did someone stop her from reaching the button? And if so, how did they know about it?
Right off the bat, Toledo Police treated Cindy's disappearance as a top priority. But it wasn't long before they admitted to several news sources that they were feeling a bit nervous after finding no clues regarding her disappearance. When someone goes missing, police tend to look for any evidence that would suggest that the person is still alive, just hiding out somewhere. A search, however, told police that Cindy's bank account was completely untouched, even though she had what they described as a substantial amount of money.
This wasn't the only thing that worried police. They wanted to know how someone managed to abduct Cindy in broad daylight. And then there was another concern. 2 bodies were found in the trunk of a car only 3 blocks from where Cindy worked. 3 victims would surface in the area, each one working at a local supermarket chain, and one of the stores neighbored Cindy's law office. Was the murderer responsible for Cindy's disappearance too?
When Cindy first disappeared, the police department explored the idea that she might have run away.
Of course they did. They always do, and following this kind of lead has derailed a lot of cases.
Right. While police were exploring the idea that Cindy ran off to start a new life, her abductor was likely getting away. Cindy was raised as a strict Christian fundamentalist. In fact, before she went missing, she had been preparing for a Christian Bible fellowship in Farmington Hills with her boyfriend. Cindy's longtime friend, Jeff Lemke, said, quote, "I have no doubt that she didn't run away. She had no problems. She was a very strong, evangelical Christian person." End quote.
Cindy's parents were adamant that she did not run away. Her father held the belief that his daughter's remains were at the bottom of a local suburban pond, but when divers looked for her, they didn't find anything.
Well, that's not completely true. They didn't find anything, but it is important to note that several years had passed before they even checked the pond for her.
Yeah, that's definitely enough time for someone to move her if they were afraid that she might be found.
Right. She had no real incentive to run away.
If anything, she only had reasons to stay. Cindy was about to leave her job and follow her boyfriend in the next few weeks.
Most would think that this was pretty exciting, not something to run away from. But her father did have one concern. He told police that Cindy was, quote, spending a lot of time on her face and herself, and that she was becoming a bit of a debutante, end quote.
I think that this is such an interesting commentary because it ties in somewhat well with religious households. Her father clearly didn't like the fact that his daughter was growing up in some ways.
That's what it sounds like. He took issue with her wearing makeup and dieting. And some people even seem to blame Cindy for her own disappearance. When asked, a neighbor described Cindy as an attractive young woman who may have, quote, caught the attention of a passerby, end quote.
I hate everything about that, but we have to entertain the theory that Cindy's beauty might have caught the attention of someone truly evil.
Yes, we do. But there is something even more disturbing about this case.
There always is.
Several weeks before Cynthia Anderson disappeared, she began to be plagued by bizarre and terrifying nightmares.
Welcome to my dream. It's good to see you.
Okay, now you are officially creeping me out.
No kidding. According to Cindy's sister, Christine Savage, she was having back-to-back nightmares about being abducted and murdered.
Nope, just a big no to that.
Has all come home. Farewell for now, my friend.
Christine claimed that she heard Cindy and her mother talking. She stated that she believes that Cindy was experiencing premonitions about her own inevitable abduction.
I'm always really freaked out about this kind of thing. It's easy to say that something like this can't be real, but especially in the world of true crime, premonitions and things of that nature do tend to pop up.
So, was Cindy really having premonitions about her own future being cut short? Did her dreams ever reveal the true identity of her killer?
Farewell for now, my friend. I'll see you around.
As if Cindy predicting her own abduction isn't creepy enough, there's some other truly weird details surrounding this story. Apparently, when Cindy first went missing, she left an open book on her desk. Though the title of the novel wasn't made public, the content was enough to set her boss on edge.
The book was open to a particularly violent part of the story, one where the protagonist is abducted at knife point. Cindy's boss, James Rabbit, said, quote, "It wasn't until really looking at the book, particularly reading the passage in the novel, that I had a sickening feeling that something was wrong," end quote.
Do you think that Cindy was reading a story like this to help her cope with her nightmares?
I don't know, but it does feel like a weird coincidence. The question is, if this wasn't just a coincidence, how would her abductor know which page to turn to?
The timing seems completely unrealistic, but the idea that her abductor might have left an open book to taunt police is even more disturbing to consider.
The truth is that Cindy's disappearance likely was not a matter of circumstance. During the months before her disappearance, somebody wrote an eerie message on a neighboring business's wall. Directly in the line of sight from Cindy's desk, somebody wrote in big letters, "I love you, Cindy," by GW.
Well, that certainly sounds like a stalker.
It does. Cindy even expressed her concerns to her friends and family. Cindy asked for this message to be painted over, and it was. However, a few weeks later, the message was back, but this time it was in even bigger letters. So, we have to ask, who is GW?
What made this so strange was the fact that Cindy didn't really know anyone with those initials. In fact, the only person who shared them was a maintenance worker in her building, the one that police had cleared. Police went so far as to ask for a full list of employees in the area, but no one else matched those initials. The bizarre message wasn't the only communication that Cindy received. According to her friend Larry Mullins, Cindy was receiving strange calls while she was at work. Whatever the caller said seemed to really upset her.
Mullins told police, quote, "She got a phone call. She kind of reacted like maybe it was obscene or something and hung up real quick. And the look on her face, still, I can picture it today. She was scared. She was honestly and sincerely scared. It gives me shivers to think of the look on her face. Something scared the hell out of her." End quote.
That's awful, and I can't imagine how that friend feels now.
Seriously, if I saw that and then that friend disappeared, I would be horrified. So, who was this unknown caller?
And what was he or she saying that made Cindy so visibly upset? More importantly, how come Cindy never reported those mysterious calls? If she felt that she was being stalked, did she think it would all go away if she could just make it a few more weeks?
There is another theory out there, and this one actually ended with some serious criminal charges. At the end of 1995, the Toledo Police Department announced that they knew who killed Cynthia Anderson. They told a local newspaper that Cindy was killed by her boss, an attorney named Richard Neller, and his associate, Jose Rodriguez Jr., who was also in the office right before Cindy's disappearance.
Almost 15 years later, and they decided that it was an inside job?
Yep. The police believed that Cindy overheard Neller and Rodriguez Jr. discussing a drug operation that they were a part of. Both Neller and Rodriguez Jr. were arrested along with 7 other men on a 25-count indictment.
A witness told police that Rodriguez ordered Neller to kill Cindy to send a message, but this claim was never substantiated. In the end, the allegations were dropped due to a lack of evidence, and no one was ever formally charged for Cindy's murder.
Cindy's father was convinced that this was not what had happened to his daughter. He said that if she heard such a thing, she would immediately report it to police, and that, quote, "that's just who she was, honest and caring," end quote.
But maybe, just maybe, Cindy heard something that she wasn't supposed to, and she paid the ultimate price for it in the end. A short while after Cindy's abduction, police received an anonymous phone call from an unidentified female. She was whispering and clearly sounded terrified as she told police that Cynthia Anderson was being held against her will in a basement. The caller told police that she knew where Cindy was.
Police asked for more details, but this caller was not forthcoming. She did, however, tell police that her abductor had Cindy tied up in the basement of a white house across from two side-by-side houses that were owned by the same family.
She informed police that the family that owns the properties was out of town and that the son had abducted Cindy and taken her down there while they were away. When asked for an address, the caller hung up.
According to Detective Adams, quote, she said that she was scared and she was talking in low whispers. She kept saying that she had to go. I kept begging her to stay on the line. Give me more information. Give me an exact address. Something that we could act on. We did check street after street on the north end to see if we could find two houses side by side. There's many, and unfortunately, we couldn't find a positive location to the house.
Was this unnamed son Cindy's longtime stalker?
I don't know. But who was this caller on the phone? And why did she sound so scared? More importantly, is Cynthia Anderson still alive today?
40 years have passed since Cindy disappeared from her desk on the morning of August 4th. Police have not given up on finding her, and they believe she could even still be alive.
Some internet sleuths speculate that Cindy may have received severe head trauma and might not even know who she is if she is alive today. Others, however, are less optimistic, and they believe that her nightmares became her reality and that Cynthia Anderson is now deceased.
As disturbing as this case is, we may never find those answers.
But that doesn't mean that we will stop looking for them.
Join us next time for yet another strange disappearance.